Dubai is not supposed to feel empty. Not this city. Not the city of packed airports, full hotels, luxury malls, and endless tourists. Not the city that spent decades convincing the world that growth here would never slow down. And yet, something has changed. Tourists are hesitating. Social media backlash is spreading. Some of the world's most famous spots feel quieter than they should. And for the first time in years, people are asking a question that once sounded impossible. Why does Dubai suddenly feel empty? Because this is no longer just a story about tourism. It's a story about image, about fear, and about what happens when one of the world's most carefully built cities starts losing control of the narrative. Officially, Dubai still looks strong. The numbers still say growth. The airport still handles millions. So if everything is fine, why does the city feel so different? That's the question no one wants to answer. And tonight, we're going to answer it. For years, Dubai sold the world more than a destination. It sold an illusion of perfection. A place where the streets were cleaner, the buildings taller, the malls brighter, the hotels richer, and the future always looked more expensive than the present. Dubai wasn't just a city you visited. It was a city you consumed. Every image was designed to say the same thing. Success lives here. Luxury lives here. Opportunity lives here. And if you are not here, you are missing out. That was the formula. And for a long time, it worked. Millions arrived. Influencers flooded the internet with rooftop pools and designer breakfasts. Investors poured money into real estate. Tourists came for the skyline and stayed for the fantasy. Workers kept the machine running. And Dubai kept growing faster, brighter, higher. But the problem with building a city around a fantasy is that fantasies are fragile. They survive on belief. And once belief begins to crack, even slightly, the entire city starts to feel different. That is the real story here. Because Dubai has not become a ghost town overnight. The skyscrapers are still there. The malls are still there. The beaches are still there. The luxury brands are still there. But the confidence, the certainty, the feeling that Dubai was unstoppable, that is what people are starting to question. And the moment people begin to question the feeling, the city itself starts to look unfamiliar. Suddenly, a quiet road feels like a warning. A half-full hotel lobby feels like a bad sign. A less crowded mall feels like the start of something bigger. A delayed flight feels like instability. A viral post feels like exposure. And when all of these things hit at once, the effect is powerful. Because Dubai was never supposed to feel ordinary. It was never supposed to feel uncertain. It was never supposed to feel quiet. That's why this moment is so dangerous. Not because the city is literally empty, but because it feels emptier than the brand can afford. And once a luxury city starts feeling less full than its own mythology, panic spreads fast. So what exactly changed? The first answer is fear. Fear changes travel faster than almost anything else. One moment, a city feels glamorous. The next moment, it feels risky. And tourists hate risk. They can tolerate high prices. They can tolerate long flights. They can tolerate heat, crowds, even overhype. But uncertainty, that's different. The moment travelers start wondering if a place is still safe, still smooth, still worth the stress, many of them don't wait around to find out. They pick somewhere else. And that is what makes recent events so important. Because Dubai's greatest strength has always been control. Control of image. control of atmosphere, control of experience. People came to Dubai because it felt organized, polished, predictable, and premium. You landed, and the machine worked. The airport moved. The taxis moved. The hotels delivered. The malls dazzled. The city performed. That smoothness was part of the product. But once disruptions enter the picture, even temporary ones, the illusion weakens. Now tourists begin to ask different questions. Is Dubai still stable? Is the trip still worth it? Will flights be delayed? Will plans fall apart? Will this holiday feel luxurious or stressful? And the second tourists start asking those questions, Dubai loses something priceless. Not money, not buildings, not infrastructure. Trust. Trust is the invisible currency that luxury cities run on. And trust, once damaged, does not come back just because the skyline is still beautiful. Then came the second problem. Backlash. And backlash is even more dangerous than fear. Because fear can fade. Backlash can spread. For years, Dubai mastered the internet. It became one of the most photogenic cities on Earth. Everything was designed for the camera. The infinity pools, the beach clubs, the penthouses, the marble lobbies, the gold coffee, the supercars, the perfect sunsets behind impossible towers. Dubai understood something very early. In the modern world, cities do not just compete through economics. They compete through imagery. And Dubai won that game for years. But social media is a weapon that cuts both ways. The same platforms that built the dream can destroy it. Because once people start feeling that the image is too polished, too curated, too artificial, the admiration turns into suspicion. And suspicion spreads faster than luxury ever could. Suddenly, people are no longer watching Dubai with envy. They are watching it with skepticism. What's real here? What's fake? What's performance? What's propaganda? What are they not showing? That shift is devastating. Because the city is still standing, but the audience is now watching it differently. And once the gaze changes, the meaning of everything changes. The same empty chair by a pool no longer looks peaceful. It looks like weak demand. The same quiet mall corridor no longer looks exclusive. It looks like disappearing footfall. The same silent stretch of highway no longer looks efficient. It looks eerie. This is how image collapses begin. Not when the buildings disappear, when the interpretation changes. And that is exactly what seems to be happening to Dubai right now. The city is being reinterpreted in real time. For years, silence in Dubai meant exclusivity. Now silence can mean decline. For years, excess meant power. Now excess can feel hollow. For years, spectacle meant success. Now spectacle can feel like overcompensation. And once that mental shift happens, a city that once looked invincible can suddenly feel vulnerable. This is also why so many people are saying the same thing. Dubai feels different. Not always empty in the literal sense, but emotionally different. Cooler, softer, less electric, less overwhelming, less inevitable. And for a city built on overwhelming the senses, that change matters more than outsiders realize. Because Dubai was never trying to be good enough. Dubai was trying to be unforgettable. And when unforgettable starts feeling merely impressive, the decline has already begun at the psychological level. That is the part people miss when they reduce this story to a simple yes or no question. Is Dubai empty? That is too small a question. The bigger question is this. Why are so many people now emotionally ready to believe that Dubai could be empty? That is where the real damage is. Because cities do not live only in the physical world. They live in the imagination. Paris lives in the imagination. New York lives in the imagination. London lives in the imagination. Dubai, maybe more than almost any modern city, lives in the imagination. It was engineered to. Everything about Dubai was designed to be larger than life. Not just economically. Narratively. Dubai wasn't just built out of concrete and glass. It was built out of ambition, out of branding, out of aspiration, out of the promise that in this one place, the impossible had become routine. That promise is powerful, but it is also dangerous. Because when reality stops matching the promise with absolute precision, the disappointment feels larger than normal. A regular city can have a slow week and no one cares. Dubai has a slow week and the internet starts whispering collapse. A regular destination can lose some hype and adjust. Dubai loses hype and people start asking whether the whole model was built on spectacle. That is the burden of greatness. The bigger the image, the harsher the doubt when cracks appear. And the cracks do appear in subtle ways first. A tourist notices a famous place feels less crowded than expected. A resident says the city feels off. A worker notices fewer big spenders. A hotel team sees guests becoming more cautious. A driver hears different conversations in the back seat. A retailer notices browsing without buying. A creator posts a quiet clip. Another creator adds dramatic music. Then another makes a collapse video. And suddenly, a mood becomes a movement. That is how this happens. Not all at once. Not through one big event. But through accumulation. Fear accumulates. Doubt accumulates. Cancelled plans accumulate. Quiet observations accumulate. Backlash accumulates. Until one day, the city hasn't physically changed that much, but the story around it has changed completely. And in a city like Dubai, the story is everything. Now let's talk about tourists specifically. Because people often imagine tourism as a simple numbers game. Either people are coming or they are not. But that's not how tourism really works. A city can still have millions of arrivals and still feel weaker. Why? Because not all tourists behave the same way. A nervous tourist is different from a confident tourist. A budget tourist is different from a luxury tourist. A short-stay tourist is different from a spend-heavy tourist. A curious visitor is different from someone fully bought into the dream. And that is where Dubai may be facing a deeper problem. Not just whether tourists come, but how they come. Are they staying as long? Are they spending as freely? Are they visiting with confidence? Are they still dazzled? Or are they now more cautious, more skeptical, more selective? That difference can be enormous. Because a city built around premium experiences depends on emotional momentum. If tourists arrive excited, they spend. If they arrive doubtful, they calculate. And the moment tourists start calculating, the whole atmosphere shifts. Luxury begins to feel expensive instead of desirable. Clubs feel overhyped instead of exclusive. Restaurants feel overpriced instead of elite. Shopping feels excessive instead of thrilling. The fantasy weakens. And once the fantasy weakens, Dubai has to work much harder to create the same emotional impact it once created naturally. That is exhausting for a brand. It means every day becomes a performance of reassurance. No, we are still booming. No, tourists are still coming. No, the city is still strong. No, nothing has changed. But the more aggressively a brand insists that nothing has changed, the more people suspect that something has. That is why the backlash matters so much. Because backlash is not just criticism. It is a challenge to the official story. And Dubai's official story has always been one of relentless success. So when the internet begins pushing a darker narrative, quieter streets, nervous tourists, disrupted travel, vanishing energy, luxury fatigue, the city is forced into a fight it never wanted. A fight over interpretation. And interpretation decides everything. A packed airport can mean resilience, or it can mean people trying to leave. A quiet beach can mean peace, or it can mean falling demand. A flashy influencer post can mean confidence, or it can mean desperation. That ambiguity is poison for a city like Dubai, because ambiguity destroys certainty. And certainty is exactly what Dubai used to sell better than almost anyone else. This is also why workers often feel the truth first. Not the official truth, the emotional truth. The hotel staff see whether guests are excited or uneasy. The retail staff see whether shoppers are spending or hesitating. The drivers hear the mood. The service workers feel the energy. The people inside the machine always know when the machine sounds different. And when enough people inside a system feel the temperature changing, the narrative outside becomes easier to believe. That does not necessarily mean the city is collapsing, but it does mean the city is under pressure. Real pressure. Pressure of perception. Pressure of expectation. Pressure of maintaining a luxury myth in a world that is becoming more cynical by the day. And maybe that is the deepest problem of all. The world has changed. Audiences have changed. Tourists have changed. The internet has changed. People are more skeptical now. They trust glossy branding less. They question polished images more. They are quicker to spot imitation, performance, and exaggeration. And Dubai, perhaps more than any other city, depends on polished branding. That doesn't make Dubai fake, but it does make Dubai exposed. Because when a city's image is one of its biggest assets, it also becomes one of its biggest vulnerabilities. If the image slips, even temporarily, the damage feels outsized. And that is what we may be witnessing now. Not the death of Dubai. Not the end of tourism overnight. Not some total collapse where the towers go dark and the airports shut forever. Something more subtle, and in some ways more dangerous. A confidence shock. A moment where the city still has the infrastructure, still has the luxury, still has the wealth, still has the global recognition, but no longer controls the emotional experience as perfectly as it once did. That matters, because the greatest threat to a place like Dubai is not bankruptcy. It is disbelief. The disbelief that the magic is still there. The disbelief that the model is still untouchable. The disbelief that the image still reflects reality. Once disbelief enters the story, every small problem gets magnified. A slower season becomes a crisis. A disruption becomes a warning sign. A backlash trend becomes a reputation issue. A quiet clip becomes proof of decline. And that is why this story has become so powerful. Dubai is not supposed to feel empty. That line sticks because it captures the contradiction at the heart of everything. This city was built to feel full. Full of ambition. Full of wealth. Full of motion. Full of tourists. full of desire. So when people sense emptiness, physical, emotional, symbolic, it feels like a betrayal of the entire project. It feels like something sacred to the brand has been violated. And perhaps that is why so many people cannot stop watching this narrative unfold. Because they are not just watching a city. They are watching a myth get tested. And myths are fascinating when they start to shake. So is Dubai really empty? No, not literally. But is it under pressure? Absolutely. Is the mood changing? It seems that way. Are tourists hesitating? Many clearly are. Is Backlash reshaping perception? Without question. And is that enough to make one of the world's most famous cities feel strangely quieter, colder, and more uncertain than before? Yes, that may be exactly what is happening. Because in the end, this is not only about whether tourists are leaving. It is about whether belief is leaving with them. Belief that Dubai is still the dream. Belief that Dubai is still the safest bet. Belief that Dubai is still the ultimate luxury destination. Belief that the image and the reality still match. And if that belief keeps fading, then the real problem for Dubai will not be empty malls or quieter hotels or nervous tourists. It will be something much harder to fix. A city that still looks magnificent, but no longer feels unquestionable. And once that happens, the silence becomes louder than the skyline. Because maybe the most dangerous thing happening in Dubai right now is not that the city is empty. It's that, for the first time in a long time, people are starting to believe it could be. What do you think? Is Dubai going through a temporary image crisis? Or is this the beginning of something much bigger?